Welcome back. A space for movie lovers is growing in the Bronx. The Bronx Independent Cinema Center aims to suit the artistic needs of those who enjoy this art form in the borough. The organization hopes to create more jobs, theaters, tourism, and more with a passion for cinema in mind. President of the Bronx Independent Cinema Center, Gregory Hernandez, joins me now to discuss their mission. Gregory, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I want to start off talking about the Bronx Independent Cinema Center. This is the first time I'm hearing about it, and it sounds pretty amazing. So can you just tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes, it is amazing. The Bronx Independent Cinema Center will be a movie theater and incubator for filmmakers in the Bronx and the greater New York area.
Oh, no, you can continue.
It's going to be a game changer. And when we look at the Bronx, we only have 2 movie theaters, as well as only 2 movie studios. And we do have film festivals, but what we're missing is a place where we have curated films, art house, independent, local films, foreign films, as well as a space to teach filmmakers the second half of filmmaking, the business side of filmmaking.
Now, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the idea of 2 movie theaters because I want to know what you consider that to be. Now, for me as a Bronx person, I always think of like AMC as a theater. Is that one of them that you consider? Or are you talking more like independent type of theaters?
Yes. AMC is a chain store, is a chain movie theater. Mm-hmm. So it's a terrific place if you want to watch Marvels or like big picture blockbuster films. However, it's not a space where you want to watch curated films, more independent films, films with a lower budget, films that are more thought-provoking. It'll generate critical thinking and have those conversations that are not just centered around, oh wow, big 3D special effects. So we really want to expand the culture of cinema and really raise the cinema palette in the Bronx by providing an outlet, a space, a mecca, a hub, a cultural center for people to indulge in the higher echelon of film, higher echelon of cinema. Instead of just having to go to outside of your borough, to Manhattan for like an IFC, a Metrograph, or Film Forum, why not have a space where you can indulge in cinema and also learn the business side of it?
Now, I really wanted to touch on the fact that your organization is described as a refuge for movie lovers. Now, this was important to me because I do love this, just this art form, but I'm not necessarily like a filmmaker, right? And I think it's amazing that there is a space for people, throughout this journey who like maybe they just enjoy films right now, but perhaps they do want to be a filmmaker later on in the future. Can you just explain why it's so important to have that area that's not too intimidating, but something that anybody who just simply, enjoy this art can be a part of?
Yeah, it's so important to have options. Without having to leave your borough, you can have the option to go to a space where maybe you can learn some facets of filmmaking. We want to focus on the second half of it. We already believe that there are a plethora of organizations and institutions and schools where you can learn the technical side, the camera, as well as screenwriting and things of that nature and post-production. We want to focus on learning how to write a film business plan, how to get your film acquired and distributed, how to fundraise, how to get your script sold, as well as learning how to market and produce and distribute your film. So for us, we want to make sure that people in our borough, they have a self-interest. They want to have an option. Okay, there are movie theaters, there are places where I can learn the technical side, but what about learning that second side? What about having a space where I can watch, once again, independent films, local films? And once again, for us, if we're here in the Bronx, we want to have a space for us that caters to our interests. The big question that I've been asking people is, if you're a filmmaker in the Bronx, what happens after you turn 25? What incentive do you have to remain in this borough after you've learned a great many things in terms of directing, cinematography, editing? What's next? What happens after your film has been screened? So it's the binary. It's really that important dichotomy of exhibition versus acquisition. Because if you want to have a long-lasting career that's fruitful, where you're able to truly be independent and operate in that $50,000 to maybe $1 million or $5 million budget range, which is quite small, then you need to learn how to learn the business side, the second half of filmmaking, learn how to get your film acquired and not just go through, okay, my film was screened in my community, I feel great. What happens next? How do I actually have a community behind me? How do I have the option to say, I want my film on a streaming platform, I want it on video on demand, I want it straight to YouTube, it'll be on my website. You want to have those options. Can I screen it in movie theaters? Can I do a theatrical release? We need to teach people that side because that'll be a true game changer for filmmakers in the Bronx, as well as residents within the community, because they'll have an outlet to really go to the movies and not just watch the same Marvel or big blockbuster or action or another remake or another
Right.
sequel. We want to see something that's original, something that's different. People talk about diversity, people talk about representation. What's better if we enhance the methods and the resources for people here and allow them to create content, create films that really cater to our interests?
Now, I think it's so interesting that you mentioned that we recently had a segment where, it was about music and these kids were, able to learn the business side. And I think with so many of these like talent led just areas or professions, whether that's like being a singer, musician or filmmaker, a lot of people they can be so talented but they don't know that business side. Do you think, and I know like just coming from the Bronx, sometimes we don't always have these resources. Do you think that is a challenge that we specifically face here in the Bronx, like not really as talented as we are, we may not know the business side of things?
I don't view it as a challenge. I view it as a mandate because it's throughout the entire art ecosystem. Whether
Hmm.
you're a musician, you're an actor, you need to learn that side of it so that way you can have that long career. To be able to negotiate, to be able to fight on your own behalf and understanding what you can and can't do and how, and to understand if you're being taken advantage of,
Right.
you need to be able to fight for yourself and be able to fight for your intellectual property, be able to have certain semblance of control, creative control. For filmmakers, we always want to have final cut. We always want to have final say on what's going on,
Hmm.
and trying to get those rare 50-50 now distribution deals. It's important that we do teach that second half, but also nurturing the creative side because you need both. But we have a phrase, BBF, become a better filmmaker. Become a complete filmmaker. In order to do that, you need to know that second half because otherwise you will run out of steam. And it happens with many filmmakers. You complete a long project, and at the end of it,
Right.
you're out of energy and money, and now what? But if you're able to learn the business side, you can work backwards and understand what's my North Star? I want to write this script. Before you write it, maybe do an outline, write a film business plan, and you're able to work backwards and be able to actually achieve and obtain your goals.
Now, I really want to talk about Lowe's Paradise Theater. This is like really cool to me because I see it all the time when I'm walking on Fordham. It's like near the Fordham area. And I just think it's so, even though it's like kind of, you can tell it's old, it's just so beautiful because it still has like the same, just everything. Like it looks kind of like an old school theater. Can you just talk a little bit about the history of that? And then, what are your plans to revamp or just kind of make it feel a part of the community again?
I feel so strongly about this when I drive by, when I take the bus, when I walk by. It's immaculate. It looks beautiful. I got a tiny sneak peek, was not allowed. I didn't like go in just from the outside.
Hmm.
They were having tours a couple of weeks ago,
Oh, wow.
and I was there to be interviewed for media to talk about plans. It's a beautiful space. It's opened in 1929. It's an atmospheric cinema. It seats close to 4,000 people. They've had graduations there, performances there. Imagine if we were able to obtain that space and showcase films and work with other organizations to have dance and arts and plays and comedy and things of that nature, and only fill it up when you have, let's say, a huge theatrical premiere or when like an actor or director is going to be there. So it's a beautiful space. We would love to get it. Unfortunately, we did meet the owner, Gerald Leiblich, and he does not want to sell it. So the
Mhm.
theater is not for sale. The only reason we really got onto it is because it would be a perfect place because it's near Fordham. It's
Right.
accessible, by the buses and the trains and the Metro North, and especially within the Bronx, traveling from east to west, vice versa. So difficult in the Bronx, but through Fordham, it's really accessible. People from Washington Heights and Dykeman can come off the 12 bus.
Hmm.
It's truly accessible, and it lends itself to being affordable and equitable because we would make sure ticket prices would be affordable. But the theater is not for sale. It
Okay.
would cost millions of dollars to get it. We are in conversations, thanks to the borough president's office, with the owner, Gerald, to potentially do a pop-up event, collaboration maybe in October. So maybe we're talking via email. We'll see if there's momentum in that regard. But in terms of us revamping or obtaining the space, right now that's not going to happen.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm happy that something's happening because I mean, it really is a beautiful space. And I every time I walk by it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to like, I want to know more. So I'm glad to hear that something's happening. Now, you talked about pop ups. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what people can expect to see from those pop ups?
Yeah, we have some exciting things this coming year within our strategic plan. we are doing workshops and screenings as well as industry talks. We just had our first event earlier this month with Hostos Community College, which was a free film industry mixer. We had a panel of industry professionals that were able to network with residents and young and seasoned filmmakers. So for us, upcoming on May 3rd, we're going to have an event with the New York Film Academy, which will be a tour, a talk, and a screening. On May 31st, we're going to be working with a Fordham University professor to do a talk on equity within the film and television industry. And then throughout the summer, we're going to have a screening series, a park screening series at Joyce Kilmer Park from June to August. We're partnering with the 161 Business Improvement District as well as the Parks Department. And then hopefully at the end, we can have a screening like at that Lowe's Paradise Theater, maybe show some films, a pop-up day, and really open up the doors to the community, because the conversation around that theater, it's truly inevitable where you're looking at that space. It's beautiful. We want to know what's inside. We want to know if we can do programming there and actually care more about the people surrounding in the area, the residents there, more than just that space. So for us, it's pop-up events this year. Hopefully next year we get a storefront space. And then year 3, we get a multi-screen cinema. So fundraising goals and pop-up events.
Now, I want to know, like, I've always been just interested in like seeing these theaters because they have this like beautiful architecture. Why are there so many abandoned or I guess repurposed theaters in the Bronx? Because I know on Southern Boulevard, there's like another area where it says like theater. It looks like, it was a theater, but it turned into Planet Fitness. So can you just talk a little bit more about why we're seeing that?
Southern Boulevard, Prospect Avenue, Whitestone off Bruckner and Parkchester, and of course, Lowe's Paradise. So a lot of the theaters that we've had, according to the research that my team and I have done, prior to World War II, we had close to 100 movie theaters. But that was a different time in terms of the main entertainment was to go to the pictures. Now, of course, we have several different options of how we want to indulge and enjoy our cinema. So for all intents and purposes, a lot of these theaters have failed or been foreclosed or just left to deteriorate. Maybe they became a dirty movie place, but a majority of them are now churches, supermarkets, grocery stores, gyms, things of that nature, and other businesses. They've just become other things, but a lot of the architecture is still there. It's remained intact. You're able to see it. Wow, look at this beautiful architecture, but it's Planet Fitness. So for us, we want to restore 1 to 2 movie theaters and bring back that culture of cinema in the Bronx, because we think it'll be a game changer for us, as well as also bring in dollars and more revenue and tourism.
All right. Well, Gregory, thank you so much for joining us to talk about this. This was really like a really cool segment for me because I love looking at these types of things, and I always take pictures of these theaters. I'm like, this is so gorgeous. I can't believe we're not really doing anything with it. So I'm glad to hear your organization is doing something about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
To help the BICC fight to keep local Bronx theaters alive, please go to their website at www.thebronxindependentcinemacenter.com. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recaplecast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.